setup. I mean, isn't this place beautiful? Like, great job, Pam and team, everybody, good job. So this is the first annual NASCA Summit, the first of many to come. So I don't know, do you guys have plans for next year on location here again or another location? Oh, okay. Can't ask that question. All right. Well, I'm excited to be with you. So just a little bit about myself. I have been in process improvement for a number of years. I actually started after high school. I went into the military, and then after the military, I actually was medically retired out of the military, and I landed a job as a production supervisor in a plastics plant in West Michigan. They were the only people that would take me. No, it was a good job, but I actually fell in love with manufacturing at that time. And then they threw on top of that lean, and I started to learn about lean and process improvement, and then I really fell in love with manufacturing and just the idea, I know it sounds really weird, but the idea of taking these raw components and putting value to them to develop something that the end customer would just love. And for me, that was just really exciting. I really enjoyed that. I liked looking at every piece of the process and helping to make it as efficient as possible. And so through the years, I've worked at many different organizations. I'm going to tell you specifically about two of them today, and we're going to talk very specifically about those two organizations. We're also going to do some really, really great activities in our groups that we're at the table. So this is going to be an interactive time together today. So let me grab, I forgot I'm on the slides today. All right, there we go. This is a harsh slide. This is my first slide, and this is a little harsh. I almost took it out. But in any organization where we're looking to make any kind of improvement, we have to start with the problem, right? And now this may or may not be how everybody feels. This is this person's feeling, Ken Miller, that the house of the government is broken. Whether or not you feel this strongly, I believe we live in the greatest country in the world. Whether you feel this strongly about the government or not, can we all agree that there's some opportunity for improvement? I mean, can we agree on that, right? There's opportunity for improvement in the state government, right? And that's why you guys are here. So where does lean come into that? Where does continuous improvement come into that, right? So that's the question. How can lean help? What can process improvement actually do for us in your organizations, with your teams? What can it do for us? Well, each one of you is here for a reason. I mean, you care enough about positive change within your state to be here at the NASCA event, right? So this weekend is going to be an opportunity for you to really dig deep into what are the tactical things that you're going to walk away with from here that you can actuly apply right away when you get back to your state? Or wherever. I know everybody's not from the different state governments. I know there's also some organizations that are represented here from Arizona as well. So wherever you're going, just know that don't waste your time here, I guess, is my challenge to you. Over the next 3 days, you have an opportunity to take some things away and start applying them right away. And I would challenge you to pick, a minimum of one, but really find 2 or 3 that you can take away and start applying right away when you get back, okay? Now, when we talk about lean, a lot of times people attribute that to Toyota, right? So then, we sit in this room and we're like, well, we're not making automobiles. We're not this isn't manufacturing. So does lean really apply to the government? Does lean really apply to the work that you guys do? My argument would be yes, and I think everyone in this room would say yes too, right? Because we really understand the principles behind what lean is and what it can do for us. But these are a couple of really good definitions that I think will help to kind of level us together, ground us together on process improvement within your sector, okay? So, deliver continuously improving value-add services. value-add services to customers, and our customers are the taxpayers, right? So does everybody, can we kind of agree on that as a definition as we kind of go into this? The other thing I want to talk about is the fact that you guys all work in different processes. You have processes that you are working in, right? So to identify those key processes, how they are performed, and then apply lean tools and techniques to those to reduce waste, to reduce costs, right? And make the end customer, the taxpayer, happy, right? That's really what you guys do. So I want to back up a little bit, and I want to tell you just a little bit more about myself and those two companies that I mentioned earlier as we dive into this together. So Avoiding the Continuous Appearance Trap is the book that I published last year. And in this book, I talk about two very real companies that I worked for that were, at the surface level, very similar. So if you were to walk into either of these companies, you would see a lot of the same things at the surface. You would see similar KPIs, safety, cost, quality, delivery. You would see similar artifacts around the facilities. You would see value stream maps on the walls or process maps. You might see colored tape and different visual management, on the floors or on the desks in different places, right? So at the surface level, these two companies looked very similar. However, when you got a little bit deeper underneath, these companies were very, very different. One company, the company that I call Company Continuous Improvement, had a true culture of continuous improvement, a true culture to the core. I mean, their KPIs were amazing. Their turnover was low. People loved to work at Company Continuous Improvement. On the other side was Company Continuous Appearance. Company Continuous Appearance. And I say that because, remember, at the surface, they appeared to have it all together, right? But underneath, they were a very toxic culture, a culture where people didn't want to work. Their turnover was through the roof. Their KPIs were in the dumps. It was a really, really difficult place to work. And so I had to ask myself, after leaving both of these companies and looking back, I had to ask myself, why were they so different? What made them so different? And then how can I take and then help others? How can we take the learnings from that, the differences between those two organizations, and understanding those differences, how can we then apply those learnings to other organizations, other entities that can then use them? So that's the basis behind the book. But there's three very simple concepts that I really want you guys to take away. Three very simple concepts, okay? Now, these are not rocket science. They're very simple. But at the end of the day, lean is simple. And simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. It's not easy to do. It's hard. It's tough. It's difficult. But lean can be easy. And my hope is that these three very simple concepts maybe resonate with you. So the first one that I realized was that Company Continuous Improvement set very clear expectations. Very clear expectations. They had standard work at every level of the organization. It was represented as the one best way to do things. They had a long-term vision, which we're going to talk about a little bit today. They had goals cascaded all the way through the organization, very clear goals at every level of the organization that everyone knew how their work rolled up and affected the long-term goals of the company, right? Now, on the flip side, Company Continuous Appearance did not have that all the time. And I'll explain that here in just a minute. But the other thing that Company Continuous Improvement had was they also enabled action. They enabled action. So they had clear expectations up front, and then they enabled the action. They didn't just say, go do it. They actually provided the opportunity for team members to actually be involved and engaged in the activities. They provided the time. They provided the opportunity to engage the team members in the activity. So they enabled action. And then the last thing that they did was they actually sustained the results. So many organizations miss that last piece, and they end up in this circle of flavor of the month activities, right? That kick off and then go away, and kick off and then something else pops up that's hotter than the next, and it goes away, right? So, company continuous appearance at times would have some of this, but not all the time. So sometimes they would set some really clear expectations on certain things. Something would pop up. Maybe a good leader would come into the organization that had maybe some other experience, and they would set some clear expectations for their team, right? And then that same leader might enable some action. But the problem is that they never sustained the results of that. So what happened is the change was never sustained if they only did the two, but not the third, right? Then other places in the organization, other pockets, they would enable action. They would establish clear sustainment plans. But they would never set clear expectations. So they didn't set any clear expectations up front, but they told people, go make improvements and let us know how it goes, and then we'll help support that, right? And what happened was there was a lack of organizational alignment because it was like this shotgun approach where everybody just was kind of doing their own thing, right? And then the last thing that I saw at company continuous appearance was where there were clear expectations laid out up front, but there was no sustainment plan in place. And when that happened, we would have mediocre results. And again, the difference was at company continuous improvement was that they had all three. And they made sure that they were very clear on expectations. They were allowing people the opportunity to be engaged and involved in the activities. And then they had very clear sustainment plans to ensure that what they were putting in place was going to be long-term, not short-term. And the result of that was a true culture of continuous improvement. So it has to be all three, and that's important. Now, one of the things that I want to mention is, in my book, I don't have chapter titles. I actually lead with questions, okay? So I've had a lot of people ask me, why questions? Why would you give us questions? Why not give us answers, right? Well, here's why. Some of you may have heard of John Shook. He was the first American employee at Toyota Motor Corporation who also brought over a lot of the work that was done in Toyota to the NUMMI plant. But John said lean management is very much about asking the right questions and trying things or encouraging others to try things. Lean management itself is not much about providing the right answers, but it's very much about asking the right questions. So what I want you to think about is if I was to provide you with a roadmap, let's say, or like, here's 10 steps to developing a true culture of continuous improvement, and you went and took that and went and applied it to your state, it would fail. It would completely fall apart. What needs to happen is we need to involve the ability for you to create your own culture of continuous improvement, okay? So the way that happens is through questions, through learning, right? If you establish a long-term vision, somewhere where you want to go, we want to create a true culture of continuous improvement. And then you establish these targets along the way, and you're reflecting and you're learning as a group, and you're developing solutions that work for your problems, because your problems are different than Toyota's problems, right? You have a different team than Toyota had or has. It's a different time, right? It's a different industry, completely different industry. So the solutions that worked for Toyota aren't going to work for the state of Alaska or the state of Missouri, right? However, the principles and the methodology, the scientific thinking piece of actually reflecting and learning as you experiment and try, that's what does work. And you need to develop solutions that are going to work for the problems that you have in your entities, in your organizations. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so the first question that I want to ask you, I'm actually going to ask you 3 questions today, and we're going to have some discussions around these 3 questions. The first question that I want to ask you is, are you pursuing perfection? When I flew here from Grand Rapids, the pilot has a destination. The pilot knew exactly where we were going. I knew exactly where we were going. Everybody that was on the plane knew exactly where we were going. Did you know that a pilot makes hundreds of course corrections throughout their flight from one place to another? But yet they know the destination, but they're course correcting for wind, they're course correcting for the weather, other planes, whatever it might be. They're constantly course correcting, but they have their eye on the destination, right? So that's what I want you to think about when we talk about pursuing perfection. Some of you may have heard the term true north. Have you heard that term before, true north? True north. So what is your true north? What is your true north? Now, we talk about perfection, right? So perfection may or may not, you may or may not be able to reach perfection, right? Toyota's true north was 0 defects, 100% on-time delivery, 100% customer satisfaction, one-piece flow. Did Toyota think that they were actually going to achieve that? It's perfection. They knew they would never achieve that, but it's not about the destination for Toyota. It's about the journey to get there and the fact that they have a destination in mind. So when they do get knocked off the path, when they get knocked off track or whatever it may be, they can course correct and get back on track because they know what perfection looks like for them. So for each one of your entities, we need to think about what is perfection for you. And have you established that long-term vision for your team, for your organization, that you can stay aligned to? Just this summer, I was backpacking on the Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore, which is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and it's beautiful. If you ever make it out to Michigan, Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore is the place to go. But we were backpacking along this trail, and we came across a tree that was across the trail. And I was actually backpacking with a group of teenagers. And I turned around to the teenagers, and I was like, well, I guess we're going home. Tree in the trail. Do you think that's what I said? No, I didn't really say that. What's that? That's true, yeah. Maybe I was ready to go home. No, that's not what I said, right? There's a tree in the trail. Does that mean that we quit, that we give up because something difficult just fell in our path? We still have a true north. We still have a destination that we're heading to, right? Just because the road becomes difficult or things didn't happen the way that we expected them to or whatever it may be, that doesn't mean that we just give up on our path, right? We have to ask ourselves, what do we do next? Do we need to pivot? Do we need to think about things differently, right? For me, I asked the teens, what do we do? And they said, well, I think we can get through, over this way, or we can go around that way, whatever it may be, right? COVID is a great example of this for a lot of us, right? I mean, we could use this example for a lot of things. But when COVID hit, for my company personally, we have a true north of being the first global choice for process improvement solutions. When COVID hit and we found ourselves out on the street, because all of our training and consulting is done on site with our client, right? So COVID hit and we were out on the streets. So what did I do? Did I just give up and say, no, sorry guys, we can no longer go forward? No, I challenged the team. What do we do now? Right? What are some different ways that we can still get to our destination, that we can stay on path? Right? What are some ways around the tree? And the team said, well, let's go online. Let's get all of our training online. Let's get all of our consulting online. Let's start utilizing virtual, live and all these things. And so that's what we did. We pivoted, right? I'm sure many of you have stories about how you had to pivot and think about things differently, right? And that's the power of having a true north. That's the power of having some type of a long-term vision in mind that you're aiming towards, that you're shooting for, okay? I want to do a quick activity because it's also important that we have a really good way to communicate that vision. Once we have the vision in place, we have to be able to communicate that vision clearly throughout the entire organization. And I'm sure for many of you that can be very difficult, right? I want to show you an example of probably what it looks like for many of you. So can I get like 6 volunteers to come up here on stage? 6 volunteers. Who's going to be daring enough to do it? 1, 2, 3, 4. I need 2 more. 2 more volunteers. 5, 6. All right, cool. I need a line right here. And if everybody could face that way, in line. Good. Good, good, good. Okay. Now, you're not allowed, go ahead and step over here so you're in line. Okay, now you're not allowed to turn around and look behind you until the person behind you taps you on the shoulder. Okay, when they tap you on the shoulder, then you can turn around and what you're going to do is pass the message through the line. Okay, so I'm going to start the message with Andy down here, and I'm going to pass, and he's going to pass the message down, and it's going to come all the way down. And we're going to see how well we're able to communicate our long-term vision through the organization. All right, so nobody can turn around and look until you get tapped on the shoulder. And then you have to mimic or imitate what the person does and pass it to the next person all the way down. Understand? There's no words, it's only motions. Yeah. All right, are you ready, Andy? Okay, here we go. All right. Pass the message. Let's see how we do. Okay, yep, turn around. Okay, good, good, good. All right, let's see it. Last one. Go ahead, show everybody what the message is. Okay. Thank you, thank you. Okay, I'm going to show you what it was just so you can see, because everybody always wonders, right? So I'm getting on a motorcycle, I'm kick-starting my motorcycle, revving it up, and then driving it through the street. That was the message. It actually went pretty well about halfway through, and then it started to... All right, give them a round of applause. Okay, nice job. So this is like the old telephone game, right? But imagine how much worse it is when you're passing messages through email and writing notes, and someone's on vacation, and then so-and-so, and then you have 2 other people that have to hear the same thing, and then you got to pass it through to another state or whatever, another entity within your organization. Imagine how things can get lost so easily, right? So how are we communicating a consistent message? Once we've established our vision, and we've maybe established some goals and some expectations that are going to help us to head out on the trail towards meeting that vision or on path towards that mission, how are we communicating that? How are we ensuring that it's being communicated consistently and effectively to the entire organization? Okay, our first discussion point. What I'd like to do is at your table, you guys have Post-it notes on the table. So if everybody could just grab one Post-it note, And what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you personally, without talking to anybody at the table first, is to choose one of these questions that you would say, no, we don't do that. Or, sometimes we do that, I guess, but not really that often. I want you to choose one that kind of sticks out to you. And I want you to write it on your Post-it note. So take a moment and do that. Pick one of those that you would say no, write it on your Post-it note. You have to change the inputs if you want to have a different output, or it's complete insanity. It's complete insanity. If you're expecting the output to be different, but you have the same inputs, always the same inputs. If you want to change the culture, you have to change the inputs. If you want a different business system, you have to have a different leadership system. Like I said, leadership is such a massive part of this. Yes, you can change the frontline staff members. You could change behaviors and actions, yes, of course. But when you start to change leader behavior and leader actions, that's when real transformation can start to happen. Okay, so I want to show you this activity over here. You probably were all wondering what this is, I'm sure. I'm going to explain it to you now. This is also one of my favorite activities. And what this represents, and I know for those of you that are over there, you can't really read some of this, so I'm going to explain it in detail so you can understand exactly what is here. What I want you to envision is on this half of the table is company continuous improvement. Okay, so this over here is company continuous improvement. On this half of the table over here is company continuous appearance. All right? These jars in the front here represent a day in your shoes. As a staff member, as a leader, a day in your shoes. Okay? At company continuous appearance, at company continuous improvement. And this is based on my experience at these companies as well as at other organizations in the last 20 plus years. So what I want you to see in this example is we have different jars here with different rocks and sand and different things. So I'm going to explain to you what these mean. The sand here represents busyness. Okay, busyness. So this is the non-productive meetings. This is the unimportant tasks that you've been given. This could be meetings that don't pertain to you. It could be maybe someone did a reply all on an email, and now you're stuck on this everlasting email chain of CCs that you have to read and try to figure out if you're supposed to be on it or not. That keeps you pretty busy, right? Right? This could also be firefighting. How many of you deal with firefighting on a daily basis? Yeah? Okay, so that's the busyness of your days. Okay, now these pebbles represent the important stuff, but I put that kind of with question marks, important stuff. Maybe it's important, maybe it's not. These are like the meetings that you get scheduled to go to. These would be, maybe it's reading emails, maybe it's desk work, maybe it's stuff that you're helping out with from another department or whatever it might be, and then meetings, and then meetings, and some other meetings maybe that you have to go to. The important stuff, in quotation marks, the important stuff, okay? Now these shiny black stones, these are what I would call the activities that will actually drive change, okay? So these are Kaizen activities, problem solving, personal development. Maybe it's a podcast that you're listening to, or books that you're reading, or maybe a book group that you're doing together with your team. It's Gemba walks. It's green belt projects, black belt projects. These are the types of activities that are really driving change, actually solving a problem, walking out of a meeting with something actually solved, and being able to check it off the list, right? That's what these are right here. Okay, so let's start with company continuous appearance. What happened at company continuous appearance when I was there was that we started with all, and this is my calendar, by the way. This is how I filter everything into my day. We started with all the busyness. It just filled our days. Every time the email ding would go off, right? The firefighting every day, the unimportant tasks, the non-productive meetings, all of that stuff would be first. And that would completely, fill up our schedule. Then came some of the important stuff. Meetings, emails, more meetings. See if I can get those in there. Those are some big meetings. Project planning, maybe. More meetings. The important stuff, right? With question marks. Maybe it's important, maybe not. I don't really know. Filling in for other people's stuff. Helping out, whatever. Okay, now it's time for the activities that really drive change. Gemba walks, tier meetings, training, problem solving, Kaizen events, projects that actually are solved and drive change, root cause analysis. Well, maybe I fit one in there for the day or the week, right? That's usually how my days went at Company Continuous Appearance. That's how many organizations go. And then, maybe I'll get to my Gemba walk tomorrow. Maybe I'll have time next week for some time on that project that I'm supposed to be working on, right? And then it never comes because all of our days are filled with that. The difference at Company Continuous Improvement was that we prioritized, because remember, they enabled action. And we're going to talk a little bit about leader standard work. But we had to have leader standard work. We had to prioritize the activities that drove change. Those had to come first. So we had Gemba walks scheduled. We had active problem solving. Every Friday we met to do problem solving meetings on reasons why we weren't able to meet our goals for the week. We were doing projects, Kaizen events, Kaizen activities every day, 2-second lean. That all happened first. It was a priority. It was number one. Then came some of the maybe important stuff. Still had room for it. See if I can fit these in here. Oh, we didn't need that one anyways. That wasn't really that important. Oh, thank you. All right, the boss said we have to do this one. All right. Now guess what? A lot of times when we're prioritizing the things that actually drive change, guess what happens to a lot of this busyness? It goes away. So I can literally fit this whole thing in here, but honestly, probably only half of it actually still happened. I still got CC'd on emails when I was wondering, why am I on this email, right? But a lot of this stuff actually ended up not happening because we realized that it was wasteful activities. These weren't the inputs that we needed to create that true culture of continuous improvement. So we had to start eliminating these from our schedules. And because we prioritized the things that actually matter, we were able to delete those from our activities altogether. Okay. And this is how we did that. We use leader standard work. I don't know how many of you have structured leader standard work that you're using within your organizations, but if you're not using some type of leader standard work, it's definitely something that you should think about. And it's incremental. It's meant to be incremental. It's not meant to wait for 2 months until I have time and then I'm going to work on my project. Or, maybe next week I'll try to get that Kaizen event scheduled that we've been trying to do for the last 6 months. It's incremental. It's little things every week. It's one Gemba walk every week. It's one root cause analysis every week. It's one tier meeting every day, right? Whatever it is, it's incremental. And those incremental things are what lead to big change. This is actually a picture of a bush plane when I was in Alaska. This pilot literally pulled out a checklist in front of me and went through his checklist before we took off. Do you think I felt safe? Yeah. Like his end goal was to have a safe flight. That was his end goal, right? And he knew the inputs that were necessary in order for him to achieve the output, which was a safe flight, right? So he knew what they were. So he literally was physically checking them off in front of me, not because I was there. He does it every time anyways. Every pilot does, in fact. Checking those off to make sure that he has the correct inputs that are going to give him the output that he's seeking, right? Surgeons have leader standard work. Astronauts have leader standard work. Pilots have leader standard work. Why would we not have leader standard work? Why would we not want to prioritize and create a structure around the activities that we know are going to give us the output that we're looking for, that true culture of continuous improvement? Create the structure and then stick to it. Develop your own leader standard work. And there's lots of different types of leader standard work. Some people use their calendar. Some people use a physical sheet that they actually print out every day or every week and check it off and write things. There's lots of different ways that you can develop leader standard work. Some people use what's called a Kamishibai board, red-green flip cards of activities. There's lots of different ways to develop your leader standard work. So this is one thing that I'd like for myself to challenge you on. When we talk about value-add activities versus non-value-add activities, many times, and you guys, maybe you're familiar with this, but a very small percentage of the activities that are happening in an organization are actually value-add. If we were to map out a process within your organization, we would probably find that the majority of the activities that are happening are actually non-value-add activities. Now, in the traditional lean manufacturing or, in the traditional process improvement world, a lot of times you hear the 7 wastes, the 8 wastes, right? Here you're seeing the 8 wastes that we use the acronym downtime. So defects or rework, overproduction or producing something too early or too soon, waiting on someone, waiting on something, not engaging the right people, not utilizing the right resources, maybe not utilizing someone's talents properly, that could be a waste. Inventory or too many storage points could be like if you open up your Dropbox or your wherever you guys store your files, how many file folders do you have? Do you spend time searching through file folders to find the one thing that you need? That could be wasted time, right? Motion or excess processing. How many sign-offs, approvals do you have to go through in order to get something pushed through to the next department? And then how many departments do you have to pass that through before it actually gets approved and moved into something of action that's actually going to generate some change? Probably a lot, right? That's all waste. Those are all activities that are generating waste. They're non-value add. What about firefighting? I mentioned this earlier. Does this generate non-value add activities for you in your organization? When I say firefighting, I mean like you come in for the day and you're thinking, all right, I got my schedule for the day, looking good. And then here comes someone that just throws a curveball at you, and now your whole day is firefighting because something went wrong or someone didn't do something or whatever it might be. So your whole schedule is thrown off, right? Firefighting. Unstable, unclear, incomplete requirements. Does anybody deal with that? Does that create some non-value add activity for you? Yeah? Insufficient alignment and coordination. Unclear roles, responsibilities, and accountability. People started smiling, now they're starting to laugh a little bit. Mismanagement of program culture, team competency, and knowledge. Is that one we deal with? Insufficient program planning, improper metrics, metric systems, KPIs. Are these all of the different things that we just talked about, those non-value add activities? Have you identified in your organization, have you identified what's value add and what's non-value add? And are your leaders, do they have actions, behaviors? Are they spending time on the value add things or reducing or eliminating the non-value add? Are they spending time doing those things? Okay, so now I want you guys, same exact instructions as last time. I want you to without talking to each other, I want you to choose one of these questions that you would answer no to, or sometimes, and then once everybody has written their own down, I want you to take 2 or 3 minutes, and I want you to have a discussion at your table about why you chose that question, and why it stuck out to you, and have that conversation at your table. And then we're going to choose one from each table, either your most frequent repeat, or one that you, as a group, you've decided this is one that really stands out for us. And that's going to go over here to this board on question 2. All right, any questions? All right, before you talk to each other, go ahead and write one down. That's how we start. Choose one. Had a very significant problem on it. Now, we all agreed that we all have opportunity for improvement within our organizations, right? So we can't imagine, we can't imagine as a team, as a group, ever imagine that we don't have any problems. We will always have problems. If anyone ever says that they don't have problems, that's a problem, right? And this is actually a quote from Taiichi Ohno, who's known as the father of the Toyota production system. He said, having no problems is the biggest problem of all. I go into so many organizations where maybe leadership, maybe in the past had led by fear, or maybe it just, I'm not sure all of the different reasons why, but people are afraid to show their problems. They're afraid to say, we have a problem, we have an issue, this isn't working, we're not hitting this metric. They want to hide it, they want to not talk about it. And that is the wrong mentality in a continuous improvement culture. What we have to get to is we have to get to a point where everyone in the organization is excited to bring problems to the table. Because when we're excited, when we can bring problems to the table, when we're excited about it and people are excited about it, now we can actually see the problems. We can actually go after them. We can actually solve them. And that's what we want to do. We don't want to be in an organization where problems are not brought up, they're not talked about, when they're hidden. Everyone knows there's a problem, but nobody wants to talk about it. That's a big problem, right? So we have to figure out ways to make our problems visible. And for every organization, it's different. For every industry, it's different on how you make your problems visible. I have a couple examples that I want to show you from my experience, but I am interested to hear from some of your experience as well. But in traditional management systems, problems are usually hidden from management, from upper management. In fact, upper management, middle managers to top managers, normally about 13% really know, or problems that are known, about 13% of problems are actually known to them. And I don't know exactly where that lands within your organizations, if that's the case or not. But and this is called the iceberg of ignorance. It's been around for a while. But in every organization that I've been in, it definitely pertains. And when organizations are relying on upper management or middle management to solve problems solely, but upper management and middle management only have visibility of 13% of the problems, how many problems are actually getting solved? And then you walk into an organization where the leaders are super busy and they don't have time to solve problems, but they only see 13% of them anyways. How many problems are actually getting solved? Not very many, right? So in what we need to do is we need to figure out how do we get visibility, not only visibility of problems to the entire organization, but also how do we engage everybody, from frontline staff members to executives to upper management to leadership. How do we engage everyone in problem solving? This is a quick activity that we do with every organization that we work with, and I would recommend it to you if you've never done anything like this with your teams. It's very simple. We sit down with 100% of the team members, every single person, and we have a conversation and ask them all the same 3 questions. Number 1, what's going really good in this organization? What's going well? What are we doing good? about our team, about the work that we do, what's good, right? And we have them write it on a Post-it. And then we ask them what's not so good, what's bad, and that's what you're looking at here. What's a problem? What's something that just bothers you on your way to work every day? You're like, this is something that if only we could fix this. And then we have them write that down. And then we ask them the last question, which is, what's an opportunity for improvement? What's something that could maybe solve the bad that you identified potentially? And then we cluster those. And the power is in data, right? So we're taking the information that they're giving us and we're turning it into data. The way that we do that is we ask everybody individually the questions, the same exact questions, and then we take their answers and we cluster them. And you can kind of see some clusters that were built here, right? You can see up in the top left, old machines. Top right is no consistency in training. Bottom right is personal preference. So those were a couple of the bads. And when you start to see those clusters, it's no longer someone that's just complaining about something. It's truth because you're hearing it from multiple people, right? So that's something that you should create some kind of an improvement, a root cause analysis or an improvement plan around, right? Oop, I think I went 2 back. Nope. So this was the result of one organization that we worked with where we asked them what was really, really good. And they said safety is really, really good. We have a really great safety program, true ownership, decision-making authority, voices in group decisions. They also said that within their shifts, there was trust in each other. But you'll see when we get to the bad, between the shifts there was no trust. So they had really, really great teamwork within shifts, but not between shifts. The other really big thing that came out of the negatives, out of the bad, was there was a huge leadership breakdown. There was miscommunication, there was distrust, slow decision-making, favoritism, and there was also a massive cluster around communication between the shifts. So they were kind of against each other. But the leadership team could have responded in 2 different ways, right? They could have looked at this and been like, they don't know what they're talking about. Or they can look at this and go, wow, these are some massive clusters of data. Like, this is real. We should probably address this. And that's what this team did. They actually put together a plan, and they stood up in front of the entire organization, and they apologized for the issues that were identified by the team. And they showed them a plan on how they were going to actually turn this around and improve it. And the reason why I think this is important to you is because top management and leadership didn't know that this was a problem. They weren't hearing these things. It wasn't until we made it visual. And people had said things. They had went to HR. They had mentioned things here and there, right? They had said little things, but no one ever made it visual. It wasn't until the problems were actually made visual that action started to get taken around it, because then it was real, right? So how are you making your problems visible? What are the things that you're doing within your organization to bring problems to the surface, to create a culture where people feel comfortable to talk about the problems and actually address them, right? Another activity that probably you're very familiar with is process mapping or value stream mapping. This is, I threw this in here because I think it probably relates perfectly with the majority of your organizations. If I was coming into your organization, this is probably the first thing that I would do is I would say, which process is broken? Let's map it, right? And if you do this, the yellow Post-its are actually on the left-hand side. So this is kind of a hybrid process value stream map that we've done for quite a while. On the left-hand side are the roles, like purchasing, engineering, whatever, right? Whatever department or role is on the left. So it's like a swim lane map coming across, and then we put a timeline on the bottom, and we actually create a little bit of a hybrid value stream map with it. But the pink notes are the waste or the non-value add activities, right? And the funny thing is one of the executive leaders that was in the room when this was done was like, there's more pink Post-its than there is yellow Post-its when we were done with it. And they were like, this is amazing. Like, where do we start? And it was just a matter of making it visual. Everybody knew the process. They'd been doing it for years. But no one ever took the process and actually made it visual and then identified all of those problems, those pain points, the challenges, the issues, the struggles, the non-value-add activity. Now it was visual. Now they could go after it and actually do something about it. Does that make sense to everybody? And again, I think this is something that probably most of you are familiar with. If not, this is a great place to start. Pick a process that's broken and map it. Some Post-it notes and some paper on the wall and some tape and markers. It's not expensive. Probably within your budget. Maybe. I don't know. Some states, maybe not. I don't know if that's a good joke or not. But all right. One last way that you can make problems visible, okay? You can't improve what you don't measure. Are you measuring your processes? Do you have ways to measure success in the things that you do? These are some examples. I just pulled these off the internet on how different government agencies and nonprofit organizations are tracking and measuring success. But how do you measure success? At the end of your day, does your team have a way to say, we had a good day or we had a bad day today? Or the week? Was it a good week? Was it a bad week? What are you measuring? Because the moment that you start measuring and you can say, okay, our goal was to have, I don't know, pick one, rework. Our goal was to have 0 rework in this particular process, and we had, 2 points of rework. Okay, well, let's set a goal for the next project to have 0 points of rework. Now we actually have a measurement and a goal that we can go after, right? So think about that for the different processes that you work in and challenge yourself to consider how are you measuring success, and if not today, maybe go back to your team and have that discussion and think about what are some things that we can measure as a team, how do we make that visible so that we can identify gaps, which would then become a problem that we can then go after and create some solutions around. All right, last discussion. Same instructions. As a individual, pick the one that you would answer no to, or sometimes write it down. Do now for the rest of our time is I want to assign each of these clusters. It just so happens that we have 9 clusters and we actually have 9 tables, which is really nice. That's how I planned it. Magic. No. I'm going to assign each table a question, and what I want you to do as a table is I know that you're only a representation of your group, but I want you to think about the entities that we're talking to here, right? State organizations, right? So when you have the question of, is the vision consistent, I want you to, as a group, I want you to do a little mini root cause analysis. What's the root of this? Ask yourself why as many times as you need to figure out why is the vision not consistent? And then I want you to, as a team, come up with 1 or 2 suggestions about something that you can do within your organization in order to create a consistent message. Okay, so a mini RCA, and then 1, 2, 3 solutions, potential solutions that you could experiment with when you go back. All right? Any questions on that? Okay, here we go. All of the ahas and the takeaways throughout the weekend. So thank you again for this time, and I look forward to meeting all of you in person over the next 2 days.